From their self-titled debut album, that is the Hypnotic Brass Ensemble, with one of the most popular tracks as far as I'm concerned from the production, and one that they speak about how it all came together in the amazing documentary Brothers Hypnotic. That song is called Balicky Bone, and at the end of it, for those people who have ever played an instrument and been in a reputable, and I say, see my eyebrow raised, those of you who will watch this on the video, a reputable band program, like the one that graduated me from Howard Dilworth Woodson Senior High School in DC, because my band instructor was from Florida A&M. That when you are going through learning your parts before you take the music out to the public ear, when you are shedding on your music, then you talk through the notes before you play the notes so that you have an understanding of how that note is supposed to be delivered. So for Balicky Bone, and you know, these most of these brothers are playing trombone, that's how they talking through the sound that they're making through the horn, right? So it's Balicky Bone, bone is how that note hits the ear, and they do that at the very end of the song. So they were probably in rehearsal when they recorded that part and talking about how that sound was going to come out. So I love it. I love it. It reminds me of a simpler time in my life, but also the joy of creating music and understanding that it's a language.
Yeah, no one can do it better. You know, you say, was it the old James Bond song?
No one does it better. No. Yes.
So
but Mike D is in the house. It's Reelblack Radio
Hey,
time.
Welcome everybody. So I heard you the previous hour, just like I thought this was an interesting conversation coming off of Black Star, and I would love to continue it. Just the whole concept of blackness and black excellence and make black film, and what does that mean in 2018? Because I feel like, you know, I had a great time at Black Star, lots of conversations, exposure to a lot of great work, new work by so many cool people. Did
you get your cookie?
I did not. Oh. No, she had the worst. But she's so adorable. I had to let her slide. She had like 18 excuses, so I did not. Sierra
I was gonna say, for people who didn't hear last week's show, Sierra Glaude promised Mike that she was going to take her lower Alabama, her LA talents, and get in the kitchen and make a batch of cookies, and that Mike would get one, but it didn't quite work out that way.
Well, we knew it was all Hollywood talk. So. Sierra,
she had good intentions, though. She had good intentions.
No, we hung out. I saw so many people. I guess. I didn't see you though.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Unfortunately, timing for me and Black Star this year was a very difficult thing. And when I was out on Saturday, I also had a horrible sinus headache, and so I didn't get a chance to hang out as long as I had originally intended, or as purposefully as I had intended. But I did get a chance to go to the Professional Black Girl Brunch organized by Yaba Blay. Shout out to her. Tarana Burke, of course, was there, and a number of the Black women filmmakers and actresses, people participating in Black Star. It was a sister girl love fest for us, just to have some time to celebrate one another, and just this idea of how we are claiming a sense of sisterhood and claiming a sense of cultural appreciation in the midst of all these other societal things that are constantly telling us we are less than and that we don't belong, that our voice is invaluable. The work that Yaba does through Professional Black Girl and through the many different ways that she interacts with students and what have you is a beautiful, beautiful thing. So shout out to her and her video series, season 2. The first one is available on YouTube and centered around beauty shops. And so this whole concept of what we consider beautiful and how it manifests itself, that's available on YouTube. Season 2 is set in her hometown of New Orleans and will be available soon. She did crowdfunding and she wants to make sure it's done right. So it's being professionally edited, and I think she says she has one more episode to get finished, and then she'll release season 2 all together.
Yeah. Black Star was somewhat overwhelming for me as well. I didn't make it to Sunday, but I did get a chance to see Terrence Nance's premiere. That was a great experience.
Random Acts of Flyness on HBO Fridays at midnight, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and Terrence, we'll get Terrence to call in eventually when we're back on our regular schedule. But for those who don't have HBO or HBO Go, they can watch the first episode for free on YouTube.
Oh, nice.
So just Google Random Acts of Flyness and you'll see what that's about. And
so it also ties back into the conversation we had about Sorry to Bother You, just for people, because there are segments of this that are very kind of surreal,
yes.
But it's mixed in with one, and this is not a real spoiler because you still need to see it, but one of the components of at least the debut episode, and I know they showed the first and second one at the screening at Black Star.
The second episode airs tonight on HBO.
He does a series of shots of regular black folks, and he calls it blackface,
right,
but it's complimentary. So it's like blackface is just showing you the beauty of us in all of our everydayness and how that should be celebrated. And it just made my heart beat faster because it was all different shades, sizes, textures of us, but just blackface in a positive way so that we can be seen and loved up on.
There's some high just moments that'll hit you. My favorite was Black Thought on Black Thoughts.
Yes.
Which is sort of
is that going to be a regular segment or was that a one-off?
Who knows?
I hope that's going to be regular.
But I thought that was just a brilliant wordplay. I mean, so for those who don't, and he'll call in, but sort of like if Salvador Dali created the Chappelle Show, and he was black. So
that is actually an excellent description, Mike Dennis.
Yeah.
I like that a lot because it really does have that element. There's some things that stretch you and you go, okay, that was a little out there, but I'm riding with it. And then there are things that are right there in your face that are just beautifully done. And all of it is celebratory toward blackness and black culture.
So big up to Terrence. And shout out to Maori and the team for pulling it all together for 7 years in a row. It definitely feels like a homecoming. And it's the only place, I mean, the thing I heard the most was like, wow, I've never been in a theater with this many black people. And, so I think sometimes people in Philly take things for granted, and it's a very special thing. It only exists in Philly, so we have to celebrate it.
Well, can we pause just to make sure that we get to the folks that are hanging out on the phone that want to chime in? Let's start with Frank on line 2. Good morning or good afternoon.
Oh, good afternoon. How you doing?
Hey, Frank.
Yes, I just want to say that if you look at black cinema, you look at black businesses, you look across the spectrum, blacks have done great things, and they were forced to do a lot of things because of segregation. See, I grew up in Philadelphia that may not be familiar with a lot of younger people, but everyone lived in the city. Poor whites, poor blacks. If you had money, you lived in the suburbs, or otherwise, you lived in the city. So I grew up in the West Philly that had every ethnic group you can name within blocks. And so this sister here was at Charles Durham's library, so I'm throwing some history at you.
Okay.
So here I am growing up in West Philly, and I got this black man that lived next door to me, and I'm saying, I'm just a child, I'm saying, wow, he's got money. He's got a Cadillac. You have a Cadillac. Not only did he have a Cadillac, but he owned the bar on 39th Street.
Yeah.
And the house. And I'm saying, wow, who is this man? Who was that man? Mr. Durham.
Ah.
Yeah.
Charles Durham's father.
Well, so Frank, I mean, the question is, I mean, how do you define blackness, black art? Because in the 21st century, because in the past, we're, as you were saying, it's a social construct. It's predicated on skin color. So you could be from Australia, but if you have a certain pigment, they're gonna read you a certain way, and you better get your card quick, or else you're gonna be confused. So, but now in the 21st century, it's kind of weird because as we assert our Black genius, our excellence, the fact that we survived the No Passage and everything. Now you have white folks saying, well, wait, we're oppressed too. You know, you're asserting against us. We are a minority, right? They're finally claiming the minority status, or at least behaving that way. So, I mean, how do you navigate through these spaces? What's your baseline on blackness in 2018?
One of the things that we need to do is educate. We need to educate the young people. I talk to young brothers. I worked for the government, federal government, for years, and we have programs. And so some of the young brothers that I talk to over the years, when I tell them, when they live in areas like Lansdowne Avenue, when I tell them, you know, in West Philly, I could go down the street to Mr. Wright's store, to Mr. Chick's store, and then they had Mr. Rosenberg's store. Mm-hmm. I said, you'd be shocked at how many as I could go to, people who looked just like me, who came from the South, who faced discrimination, they were very hungry, and because of discrimination, they had to open their own. A lot of the people today, a lot of the young people, they're confused. They tell me, they call me OG. OG, you mean we really own things? We really did this? Mm-hmm. This education, this communication, letting this young generation know that if we did it before, we can do it again.
Yes, sir.
But if I cut on the news and hear the first 10 minutes of what we did, and we need to educate the foreigners, because when the Asians told Jesse Jackson, we do good in America, don't include us. And so when we talk about people of color, a lot of the people of color that come here from other places, they just see what's going on now. They don't know the history. They have the same opinions of us as whites.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think anybody's going to deny that. And there is a lot to be done. And, you know, it doesn't help that we have a film that's hitting theaters this weekend called Crazy Rich Asians, which is not talking about the average experience of the folks that we're going to encounter who own these mom and pop stores in our community that we're trying to find some balance with either. You know, this notion of how we Hollywoodize things, and what perceptions it brings back to us about who we are and how things operate in our society is not necessarily going to be benefited by that particular film.
And Frankie, I know we're up against a break, but I should forward in when we come back, for folks who didn't know, Bradford Young made his return to Black Star, and he had a very exciting, interesting conversation in terms of navigating those spaces, you know, having the opportunity to shoot $100 million films, but at the same time, keeping it real.
Yeah, staying true to himself. Let's take one more quick call, though, because we've had folks that have been hanging out for a minute. Timothy calling in from South Philly. Good morning. Oh, good afternoon.
You got my favorite person here, Mike.
Hey, Timothy.
Hey, listen, man. A person that'll never be forgotten, man, and he's still moving and doing his work as an artist, is Spike Lee.
Oh, without question.
I want to say to you, man, that I want your opinion of the movie that he just
Black
Klansman. Mm-hmm.
Okay, well we can talk. Yeah, well I had a chance to see it. We're gonna see it again. We have a meetup scheduled for Tuesday. Mary, I passed on the meetup group that's on meetup.com to a woman named Miriam, and she's scheduled. I intend to be there Tuesday. It's 5:00 day at the Upper Darby grill, the grill thing.
Yeah, studio movie
grill. So we're gonna go check it out again. I enjoyed it. I mean, I for those who are expecting like Do the Right Thing Part 2, don't expect
this
that.
Ain't that.
No. But for those who are like Chirac continues, then you're there. Well, it's a little better than Chirac.
Yeah, I would hope so.
But I think people are responding very positive. It's got 98% Rotten Tomatoes review. I mean, it really it hits home. You know, not to give anything away. The last final segment where he incorporates the documentary footage from Charlottesville. It brings the whole story home, and it leaves you wanting to talk about this story.
So Timothy, hang tight, because Mike brought up one of the burrs under my saddle when it comes to Spike Lee's filmography, which is Chirac. So we will talk about that and just the idea of the presence and the intention of films as we continue.
But let me give you the theaters. It's playing very wide. It's at the Ritz Eats, the UA Main Street, AMC Lowe's Cherry Hill, Studio Movie Grill, Regal Morristown, AMC Deptford, UA Grant Plaza, Cinemark 16, Bryn Mawr Film Institute, Movie Tavern, Flowertown, AMC Marlton, AMC Voorhees, AMC Philadelphia Mills, which is Franklin Mills, Marple, and Plymouth Meeting, Ambler, Neshaminy. It's playing virtually everywhere. And King of Prussia. So there's no excuse for you not to check out Black Klansman.
Yeah, it is at a theater near you for sure, regardless of where you live in the city or around.
It's forever. It's the biggest thing.
And part of that is because of Jordan Peele's involvement, clearly, and the success of Get Out. So hang tight. More conversation about Black folks on film and TV as we continue this week's edition of Real Black Radio in just a moment. From the album Buenos Hermanos, that is one of my favorite crooners of all time, the late, great Ibrahim Ferrer, with a song called Naufrago. And for all of us who appreciate the idea of diasporic sounds, then to have now this collection of elders that were brought back into the studio by Ry Cooder and his son after their curiosity about what happened to all of these very famous Cuban voices after the embargo, when we stopped going there and making Cuba, like the rich folks' playground, just south of Miami and everything else, and gave us a chance for a brief period, because they were all elderly and started dying, but to give us one more chance to hear them recording, and these celebrated voices that were huge in the 40s and 50s.
The Buena Vista Social
Club.
Oh, okay. All right, if you want to say it that way.
No, that is how it's said.
Buena Vista Social Club.
Yes.
Okay,
featuring all these wonderful forgotten Afro-Cuban voices.
Well, there are no video stores anymore, so I have to go on Amazon. It just came out on Criterion after years. So
nice.
Yeah, I believe it's on Blu-ray as well. It was one of the first movies that was shot in HD, like the concert.
Yes.
It was it's still experimental technology from Japan to film a concert in high definition.
Yeah, so it's interspersed. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's actual concert footage after Ry Cooder kind of reconvened all of these people and brought them to the U.S. They started at Carnegie Hall, and then they toured the United States, sharing this music and until they, started passing away. But it's interspersed with interview footage that was shot on Cuba of them talking about what happened to them in that 40 years or the 30 years in between when they stopped recording or when the embargo was implemented, and them going back to regular lives, really, after being superstars.
Yeah, well, they toured very well. I saw some of the members here at the Man years later and different things like that. So it's always good when you have a second, third chapter to your life, Yes. So, but it brings up a good point, though, in terms of like preserving the culture. Frank was saying we must educate. I think my definition of Black might be different. Like I've always been had a lot of latitude in terms of how to define Black film, but it's very clear. Like I was talking to Hans Charles and then also Bradford, in terms of how they define Blackness in Black film is a little different. Like they even go to the point of saying not just every brother ain't a brother. Like not every film with Black people is a Black film.
Right.
There's some films that are just carbon copies of European representation.
Yes.
And that goes way back.
And some of that's intentional. I mean, think about it. We had a remake of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Like there are a number of film remakes that have been recast with Black folks, but it's not the some of the circumstances of the characters didn't transform themselves so that it made it a different kind of black cultural statement. It's just black actors doing what the white actors did in a different version of the same story.
Yeah, and that goes back. There's I'll come with the person's name in a while. There's a Langston Hughes had an argument with another black person, the Harlem Renaissance, where they had the same dilemma, which is, there's one argument like, black people have been colonized for so long, there's no such thing as black identity outside of European identity. And then, so therefore the idea of black art is hokum, but he was also sort of somebody who believed that, in the master race of breeding, having children biracial to have a prodigy or something. But Hughes clearly was like, we have to preserve our folklore. It's okay for us to speak in Ebonics, and the majority of his storytelling was about Southern culture, preserving certain things.
And let us be clear that the concept of identity, especially through the lens of someone like a Langston Hughes, I think is incredibly important. And I'm one of these people who advocates all the time for us to acknowledge the fullness of a person's chosen identity as well as their background, right? So Langston Hughes is one of these people that I think we do a grave disservice, as he is most often taught in classrooms and what have you, because we need to acknowledge the idea that the fact that Langston Hughes was biracial has a significant bearing on him deciding that he wanted to write in dialectic poetic language and preserve that part of his history as significant. And the fact that he was a gay man also factored into who patronized his art, who allowed him to have the voice that he had so prominently within the context of the Harlem Renaissance, and that we shouldn't sacrifice these various parts of what makes somebody who they are because it makes us uncomfortable to speak about it in certain, contexts. Right.
But George Schuyler was the other cultural critic who was making the black art hokum argument.
Yeah.
That you can't. We've been colonized so much that there's no purity within the black sense.
We're getting ready to go back to the phones, but I will say, as someone who was born and raised in D.C., that for somebody to tell me that the accent that comes from the area, and people who know, isn't valid. You know what I mean? So even among what we think of as Ebonics, or even that go-go music existed as a way, it was a form of resistance.
Right.
And I mean, because I have spoken to enough people who play all different kinds of music, and when I bring up go-go consistently, they go, that is one of the blackest things ever. And I'm like, exactly. One of the reasons why go-go resonates and why it will always be treasured within the context of the DC city and surrounding areas is because in a moment where we argue about gentrification being priced out of our historic communities and what have you, it is one of the vestiges of the time when DC was Chocolate City, and this was a manifestation of a sound and a movement that was so ours, that people still cling to it in that context.
I want people to, for me, I feel like these social artifacts are what we're here to create, to constantly remind, because a lot of times the metaphor becomes your memory of an event, or like a lot of people.
Mike is giving up some gems today, y'all. You hear that? The metaphor becomes your memory. What?
Right. Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. Well,
you had your Wheaties this morning, didn't you?
Oh, well, shout out to Romare Bearden. But anyway, the storyteller's job, it is to preserve the memories.
Yes.
And sometimes the way we articulate ourselves is through what we see, not necessarily our own direct experience of something. So
I love it. I love it.
But Bradford and Hans, they were on this other thing. Like they're so far into it. They're like, well, not every black film, every film with black people is a black film, but there are films made that have white folks in it that are equally black or made by white folks.
Okay, because
they talk about they are against the Western civilized standard that we're all trying to buck. So. So there's some films of white people that represent blackness more than black films.
Let's hold that as we go back to the phones and speak to Red Fox. Good afternoon.
Yes, good morning, or good afternoon, Renee and Mike.
Hey, Red Fox.
Yes, I would like to first just back up a little bit, just to talk a little bit on your piece, what you did with just earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a hearing near Scranton, which was the Mumia trial.
Mm-hmm.
And Mumia was held in a cell downstairs, and he had an online of a TV
testimony.
Trial.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And so outside, as we took a break, there were people walking around with assault weapons and guns. And you know, Mona Africa and the rest of the clan went off.
Mm-hmm.
And so I asked the security guards that was in the court hallways and things like that. I said, do you know people walk around with guns out there and assault rifles? He said, where? He looks up. Oh, that's Mike and them. That's Jimmy and them.
Yeah.
I said, this is crazy, you know? So I wanted to say that. It's like things becoming too real. Mm-hmm. Because people fighting things that they don't even understand what's going on.
Right.
And so when I came home, I couldn't even explain that to my people because they wasn't even ready for that.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple of miles from here. There's people walking around with assault weapons.
Yeah. And perfectly legally able to do so.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And nobody sees nothing wrong with that. Right?
Well, somebody was at Kent State with that.
The whole city goes off, right? Okay, Now, with the film, and I went to the Black Star movie. I've seen 2 films. I've seen the Prince of, what is that? Help me with that. The Prince of...
I was going to say, I'd have to go back and look at the schedule.
Yeah. But anyway, I seen that. It was shot beautifully. Mm-hmm. I'm intrigued with it. I don't know how much it was real in that country, but I could see him working through things like that.
Yeah.
Then I seen the very poignant film, I thought, with Jen.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Yeah, the one they won.
See it.
Yes.
Yeah, my daughter took me to see it.
Nice.
Quietly, she just let me know because she was the daughter. By this time, I was going through the Nation of Islam. Mm-hmm. And her mother was a Christian. Mm-hmm. And we got involved. Matter of fact, the baby was made out of that relationship.
Yes.
And now she's in her 30s, and she let me know, Dad, this what you were into.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And so I said, yeah. And the family never made the switch. But, and we never got married, but because my staunch belief in Islam, kind of got weighty on me. So I just figured everybody should be a Muslim.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But now looking back, I'm saying these are real things. And so now I'm kind of looking through a kaleidoscope of the many changes that happen in life, with race relationships, with religion, with movies and everything like that. It's just things are just swirling out of control. But at the end of the day, we know that God is in it.
Indeed. Well, we thank you for your call, Red. And I want to say, I think it's a beautiful thing that Red came to support Black Star, but also that his daughter found value in one of the film screenings and took her dad to see the film so that they could have a point of conversation around the way the storytelling paralleled an aspect of their lives. That's what this is about, y'all. And this goes back to what Mike just offered us, this idea of the metaphors, how they manifest in the storytelling that we hope everybody's doing, whether it's on the large or small screen, in their music. The way that we develop the culture is by continuing to assert our perspective in the way that the stories are being told.
Yeah, I'm having a real fun time like curating for YouTube, the YouTube channel, finding videos from different archives and public domain sources and sharing them, and the comments are incredible.
Yeah.
We put up a movie, one of the earliest sound movies I've seen with a black cast called High Toned with Buck and Bubbles. And, I know the guy was being facetious, but he said 1929, black people spoke English, and then, we Harlem Globetrotters clip that I put up last night, early this morning. Someone said, wow, I had a friend whose father was a Harlem Globetrotter.
Yeah.
This is cool. And a lot of people comment and say, wow, this is something that I experienced, like farming or just different art, different things like that.
Well,
like when you have those images, it's almost like the photo album extends itself projects into your imagination. Wow, I wonder what that
I was going
like.
to say, and for me, because film is my secondary love. I come at it from the music. My father used to sing with the Hal Johnson Singers that were often featured as the soundtrack for a lot of these great films. And Cabin in the Sky truly changed my life. Now, we can argue about Mantan Moreland and some of the characterizations he played, but to see Ethel Waters be presented in that way, to see Lena Horne and Paul Robeson, I mean, there were so many people that were involved in that film, first of all, as it was in that time. Duke Ellington has a whole scene in the club, but the kind of, despite the circumstances that we were going through, still the beauty of us as it was living in those spaces, on those sets, in those films was so incredibly significant. And my friends gave me a copy of the DVD, which of course, when I got robbed, after I came to work here, I lost, but I replaced, because that film to me is so indicative of that. And so those angelic voices in the heavenly chorus, down to the kind of moral dilemma as it plays itself out in films like that, to me is still part of the Black storytelling. Yeah,
it's a connection for sure. So as he says, kaleidoscope, as we open things up, I hope our fellow filmmakers, storytellers, don't forget that we're here to share stories as well. I know, like it's weighing heavy on my heart. Like, I look at things on social media, mainstream media is repeating social media now, because now they just report what George Clooney said on Twitter, as opposed to actually going and hiring a crew to go talk to George Clooney. They just retweet his tweet. So we're regurgitating that. And now, I understand artists want to express themselves in what's happening today. Yeah. And that's going to come through the art. Yeah. But please do it in a way that helps heal us as well. So I'm excited. Like Jen is one of those movies I think you see you make the connection, but there's an identification with the main character. Yeah. And I'm excited. The next movie coming to Philly, Idris Elba is producing and starring in. It's called Ghetto Cowboy. Ooh. And it's a coming of age story about a young boy who's sent to Philadelphia for the summer to spend time with his father, who happens to be one of the urban cowboys in West Philly that rides and rodeos. So it's introducing him to a different perception of the way Black people are. So I'm excited about those. Are the kind of movies I'm excited about. There's lots going on, and we can talk about this more on the other side as we prepare to wrap up. Queen Sugar, which I think is some of the finest storytelling on television. It has been renewed for season 4. Yes. So, for those people who were worried, as we're now in the midst of season 3 and we're very emotionally attached to these characters. Worried? Come on. I wasn't. Queen Sugar is like the Black Waltons. It is. That's going to be on forever. It is. And ever. As long as so Oprah has that network, there are going to be some Queen Sugars. It is so wonderful. I want King Sugar. Wonderful. I want the Black male spinoff, Ava. But there's, I was going to say, but there's strong Black men in that Kofi we need to see more of. He needs to take his sugar money out and start a rap label. Oh my God! Stop. We go up against Empire. We're taking our final commercial break of today's segment and coming back to conclude this week's edition of Reelblack Radio here on the TGIF edition of The Source. Stay tuned. From a greatest hits collection called A Decade of Steely Dan, that is one of their classic hits called Peg. And it just interestingly enough, off camera, the conversation that Mike and I were entertaining is this, kind of expanding on this conversation that Hans Charles and Bradford Young were having at Black Star about what is Black culture, and are there white artists who represent Black culture more effectively than some people who live in Black skin. And I think that's a very problematic but interesting argument to kind of wade through. And to be fair, we'll probably have to have Hans on or Bradford when he's less busy shooting Central Park 5 right now. Yeah. But But yeah, they're on a whole nother realm in terms of like all the energy that exists within the universe. We only have a certain perception of, and the camera subconsciously captures more than what we're able to see and things like that. So they're on a different plane than just like, hey, I like it because it represents my experience.
Right.
So I believe in a cross pollination because I don't necessarily, the core of it, the truth of it is, for me, is always going to come from my experience. And I've been saying lately, I love myself too much to hate black people.
Amen.
But some of y'all black people get on my nerves, but I'm going to still defend you. I'm going to ride and die for you. Because I love myself, and I'll claim it all. I'll defend the majority of it. Some of the behavior, maybe not so much. Yeah. But I'll take ownership of it. Yeah. So
I appreciate.
So I'll own Steely Dan because you got Bernard Pretty Purdy playing them drums. It would not be the same record.
But there's also, within that context, what I hope people get, you said cross-pollination, but I also, we have said throughout history that black folks are not a monolith. Yeah. And so what I hope people will also appreciate is that when we talk about expression of black culture and what helps to define us, that we understand people have lived very different experiences in this black skin, or not so black skin, but it's still, that they identify
it all
as black.
Counts as far as I'm concerned.
Right. And it all factors into the storytelling, that we should be able to embrace a diversity of storytelling, because the kid that grew up in black skin in Lancaster County is not going to have the same social frames of reference that I had growing up as a high yellow black girl in DC.
And to bring it full circle, now I've spoken on this microphone, this is the very same microphone, about how upset I was that Jada Pinkett Smith would go around talking about how they plan their vacations. And I said, some of that vacation money could go to support some black filmmakers, or you could take that vacation time and do a cameo in some independent filmmaker's movie. And I was really mad. I was upset. And then they put out their vacation video on YouTube, and I was like, dag, if that's how y'all rolling, go spend that money, because that was some dope. They went to a volcano and they went scuba diving in Italy. Yes. I was like, okay, that's a different experience.
But I'm glad that you brought them up in general.
I'm not mad at you, Jada.
First of all, let me say to the people on the camera and people listening to me on the air, if you do not follow, Jada's just getting into Instagram. To me, Will Smith has the best Instagram account, period. If you're not following him on Instagram, please do. He is really doing a full court press because he turns 50 this September. But in terms of living your best life, and also just showing people that there is, you do the work to make money, but then you also take time and you just enjoy the breathing in the air and doing things that your life affords you to be able to do.
Tax write-off. He had a drone following him and his family as they walked up the slope of the volcano, the active volcano.
Yes.
Willow, I think she did a break dance. It was just amazing. It was incredible entertainment.
But the other thing about it is that
black folks entertainment.
When they talked about homeschooling their children, black folks, especially from round the way, had all kinds of stuff to say about their parenting and about the children that they were raising. Listen, y'all, if I was making $20 million a film, there's no way that my child would be able to parallel the existence that I lived as the child of a middle-class family in Southeast DC. I don't care where we lived. I don't care where our zip code was. The way that they lived their lives is not, there's not going to be a comparison.
I wouldn't expect it to be. I would if I had a super rich dad, I would hate for him to blow all the money and have me go like the reverse Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. You got to go to public school because I blew all the money, like Johnny Depp.
It's not even about the put your child in the most expensive circumstances they can be because you can afford it. It's the, can I please let my children can we find a happy medium between the life that I lived growing up
they have a
and what I can offer
lifestyle.
them, what I can offer them now because I have the means to do so, to let them find their way in the world in a different way than I either chose to take or I had to take based on certain life circumstances. I don't think that's a bad thing.
Look, I can't co-sign on that because they do be doing some weird things and saying some weird stuff from time to time.
But weird from your subjective perspective. I mean, I will not necessarily be able to say that that's exactly the same choice that I would make in all circumstances.
They're living their truth. I think there's a much wider range of normal today than there has been in the past.
But I also think that and Rennie Harris said this, and in my film Rennie Harris said this, and I had to think about it, and I was like, you're actually right. I was raised very conservative. Right. That despite the fact that my parents were relatively liberal, they had a framework for how they wanted to raise me in United Methodist Church. I didn't grow up Southern Baptist or Pentecost. United Methodist Church is how I grew up in this very insular community in Southeast DC. It was black, right, but it was still not the, I didn't start getting my, fully wild child artsy girl ways until I got into junior high school, and was exposed to more of people that were raised differently from the way I was raised. It's tough for anybody to have to grow up in the public eye. Right. So to clarify, look, I'm not hating. I give Jada her card back because that video was dope. Right. Yes. And they could afford to do it, and they did. And I'm not going to criticize any child actor or anything, but what I do criticize are the sycophants who look at a Jaden Smith and think that he's a genius and he's woke and he's smart, because I think he's still an evolving young man. Yes. And I just think that he's not somebody who I think he should really engage in some serious debates and not necessarily think that everything that he puts out is art or that needs to be followed. Icon, all that stuff. There's a level of nepotism there that I think he understands and appreciates. But that's also Hollywood. I think he understands and appreciates it. But I think he there needs to be some balance on that one, so. But he just turned 21, right? Yeah, well. He's young and black and got money. I'm just saying that some of the characteristics that he displays is not different. If he went to like a real school where his thoughts and ideas and opinions were challenged, he'd be a much smarter person. He's got really strong genes. He's super intelligent. Yes. But some of the things I hear him say just don't make any freaking sense. And I'm not ready to co-sign on him yet. But I was going to say, this is your elder self looking at his 21-year-old self and saying some of that. I know that I said and did things when I was 20 and 21 and full of myself coming out of pen that today I would look back at me and go, for real, Steph, like, shh, just calm down and live a little bit, and you might think differently about this. So, all right, can we agree that Jaden Smith and Willis Smith make better art than Chet Hayes? I don't even know who Chet Hayes is. Tom Hanks's rapper. Yes, I'll say we can end on that point of agreement. Will, you made better kids than Chet Hayes. All right. Even though that child, that's not even Tom Cruise. Supposedly, he's not even Tom Cruise's biological kid. Hanks. That boy, Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks. Colin no. Hanks. He's got Colin my God. I'm thinking about Tom Cruise's son, who looks just like him, even though he's supposed to be adopted. Oh yeah, that was some weird. Anyway. Our time is up, ladies and gentlemen. Next week, our Summer of Freedom goes to 3 different locations, which includes Friday, unfortunately. So Mike will not be with us. We're at Widener on Tuesday, Winfield on Thursday, and Overbrook Park, my home neighborhood library, on Friday. And then the following week, of course, Thursday is our day-long Founders Day broadcast, where we hope you will come and sit in with us for at least part of the day and absorb all of the energy as we pay pay tribute to the life and legacy of Dr. Walter P. Lomax Jr. And Mike D will be back in the house in studio that following Friday.
Okay, and the last thing, now this is about as fun as Mr. Microphone, but this week the Ancestry DNA is having a 40% off sale. You can find out that you're black for $59.
And find out a little bit more of the depth of your blackness.
If you believe.
We are not going to get in that debate now.
Fake.
Brother Shamari's up next. Take care, everybody.